It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I was walking back from the gas station with a Gatorade and 2 bags of chips, one of which I already opened and half crushed in my pocket. The sun was doing that thing where it feels like it's pressing down on your scalp. Everything smelled like asphalt and distant grass. I remember that. The road home curves a bit near the church parking lot, and that's when I saw the car, this big, shiny silver thing with its hazard lights blinking slow and sad. One of those cars you only see in magazines or in front of banks. Hood popped, rear tire flat, and standing beside it, a white man in a blazer and loafers, dabbing sweat off his forehead with a crumpled napkin. He looked out of place, not just because of the car, but because nobody like him ever had a reason to be on this side of town. I slowed down. I wasn't sure why. Habit, maybe. My granddad always said you don't walk past someone stranded without asking if they're good. So I asked, "You need help, sir?" He blinked like I'd caught him off guard, then glanced at me, really glanced. Took in the hoodie, the busted sneakers, the chipped nail on my thumb. "I've got a flat," he said, voice tight like it hurt to admit it. I nodded and dropped my bag on the curb. "I can help change it if you've got a spare." He hesitated. It was the kind of pause you get used to after a while, like they're scanning you in their head, running background checks on your face. That pause was maybe 3 seconds long, but it stretched out in my head like a rubber band about to snap. He looked at the car, then at me, then down at the tools in the trunk like he had to do some math. Is the risk of letting this kid near my car greater than standing in 90-degree heat until someone else shows up? I pretended not to notice. I've learned how to pretend like that. I crouched beside the tire, careful not to move too fast, like I was disarming something. "You got the jack in here?" I asked, pointing to the compartment in the back. Yes. I think so." He stepped aside, still watching me. He didn't offer his name. He didn't ask for mine. He just stood there, arms folded, napkin still in his hand, while I loosened the lug nuts and cranked up the car. I wasn't mad. Not really. It wasn't the worst interaction I've had with someone who looks like him. But there was this quiet thing hanging in the air, like dust you only notice in a sunbeam. He didn't know whether to thank me or brace for something. It's a look I've seen before. Not always hostile. Just uncertain. Like the world told him boys like me were something to be cautious of. And I guess part of me was used to that. So I said nothing. Just kept working. Just kept being helpful. Because sometimes the only way to get through a door is to hold it open for someone who wasn't going to invite you in. When I was tightening the last lug nut, I noticed something strange. There was a suitcase in the back seat. Not a regular rolling suitcase, but the old-school leather kind worn, with brass corners and a tag that looked like it had been somewhere far away. The kind of suitcase people don't really use unless they want to be noticed. It was cracked open just a little, and I could see the corner of a red folder inside. I didn't mean to stare, but the sunlight hit it just right, and I saw the letters M. Evans Trust stamped on the folder. I looked away quickly, but not quick enough. He saw me looking. "You finished?" he asked, sharper now. "Yeah," I said, brushing dirt off my hands. "You're good to go. Just take it slow the first few blocks." He nodded, then added, almost reluctantly, "You do this often? Change tires. Help strangers." I shrugged. "I mean, yeah, if I can." That made him pause again, this time not out of suspicion, but like he couldn't quite process the idea. Like kindness from someone like me had to come with a backstory or a motive. I waited, figuring he'd drive off. But he didn't. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a money clip. Thick. Probably more than I'd made all summer. I knew what was coming before he said it. "I'd like to give you something for your time," he said, peeling a few bills off the stack. He held them out like he wasn't sure if I was going to take them or run off with them. I looked at the money, then at his face. And I don't know what got into me, but I shook my head. "I'm good," I said. He blinked. "You sure?" "Yeah. You needed help." "I had time. That's it." He looked confused, like refusing the money threw the entire equation off. As if the idea of help without profit didn't compute. We stood there in silence for a few seconds. Me with hands still dusty from the pavement, him with a rolled wad of money suspended between us like an unfinished sentence. Then I picked up my chips and my Gatorade, nodded once, and turned to walk. And just as I stepped away, he called out, his voice different now. Less polished. Almost unsure. "What's your name?" I stopped. "Elijah." "Elijah," he repeated, like he was trying it on. "Thank you." And for the first time, it actually sounded like he meant it. As I walked back toward home, I didn't look over my shoulder. I didn't need to. I could feel him watching me walk away, like he was still trying to figure out if that had really just happened. If a black kid from nowhere just helped him out and didn't ask for anything in return. That's the thing. People like him are used to everything being a transaction. Help is given for a tip. Time is billed by the hour. Generosity comes with branding. But that's not how I was raised. My granddad used to say, "We don't help to get, we help because it's right." And in a neighborhood where we all had less than enough, that was how you survived, by showing up for each other without keeping score. Still, I knew what the man saw when he looked at me. Maybe that's what stuck with me most after the whole thing. Not the heat, not the money I turned down, not even the strange look in his eyes when I told him no. It was the fact that for a few moments, I became something he didn't have a name for. Not a threat, not a charity case, not a scam, just a contradiction he hadn't prepared for. 3 days later, he came back. I was in the front yard helping my mom patch the fence when the silver Mercedes pulled up. Same car, same guy. This time, he stepped out slow, like he wasn't sure he should be there. My mom looked up from the hammer in her hand, eyes narrowing just a bit. She didn't say anything, but I could feel her watching him like a hawk. He walked up to the gate and nodded at me. "Elijah, right?" "Yeah," I said cautiously. He looked around, at the peeling paint on the porch rail, the grass trying its best not to die, the 2 pairs of sneakers drying on the stoop. "This your home?" I nodded. He cleared his throat, then turned to my mom. "I hope I'm not intruding," he said. "Your son helped me the other day. Changed my tire. Wouldn't take a dime." My mom relaxed just slightly, brushing dirt off her palms. "That sounds like him," she said. Then after a pause, "You didn't come all this way just to say thank you, did you?" He smiled, kind of sheepish. "Actually, I think I did. We invited him in. Not because he was rich or polite or persistent. Mostly because my mom believes in hearing people out, even the ones who don't usually cross into our part of town." He sat on the couch, the one with the spring that creaks when you lean too far right. His suit looked almost out of place against the faded cushions and crocheted throw pillows. He kept looking around like he was seeing something he hadn't planned to. I brought him a glass of water. He thanked me like it surprised him that I knew how to be hospitable. After a few awkward seconds, he leaned forward. "I realized something after you helped me," he said. "That moment, how you acted, how you carried yourself, it stuck with me. I couldn't stop thinking about it." He glanced at the photos on the shelf. Me in a paper graduation cap from elementary school. My mom with her arm around me at the zoo. My little sister, years younger, in a tutu she never took off. I've spent my life surrounded by people who always want something. You didn't. And it kind of threw me. He paused. "I want to help," he said finally. "If you'll let me." My mom raised her eyebrows. Not angry, just unconvinced. "Help us how?" That's when he hesitated again. And I knew, right then, that whatever he had in mind, it wasn't just about us. It was about something in him he didn't even know was broken. He shifted forward on the couch, setting his glass down like he needed both hands to explain himself. "I run a foundation," he said, "mostly focused on education, youth programs, scholarships, that kind of thing. But it's been years since I've actually met someone who reminded me why I started it." He looked at me, not through me, at me. "Elijah, I want to offer you something. A mentorship, a scholarship when the time comes. Maybe even some support for your family. No strings." Mom didn't say anything right away. Her eyes didn't narrow, but I could feel the weight behind them. She was measuring him, his words, his intentions. She's had a lifetime of promises that evaporated the second backs were turned. Charity that came with cameras. Help that felt more like control. I could feel it too. That complicated itch in my chest. Part gratitude, part doubt, part something else. Something that asked, why now? So I asked him, "Why me?" He exhaled and leaned back. "Because you reminded me that sometimes the people who have the least give the most. And I forgot what that kind of integrity looks like." His voice was quiet, like he was still learning how to say those words out loud. I needed that reminder. After he left, the house felt different. Not louder, not quieter, just heavier. Like his visit had left something behind that we couldn't see but couldn't ignore either. My mom didn't say much. She just went back to folding laundry like the conversation hadn't happened. But I knew she was thinking about it, turning it over in her head like a stone in her palm. Me? I wasn't sure what to feel. It wasn't just the offer, it was the way he looked at me. Like I had shown him something he hadn't seen in a long time. and that should have felt good. But it also made me realize how rare that must be for someone like him to see someone like me as a person, not a profile. The next day at school, I kept checking my phone like I was waiting for something. A message. A sign. I don't know. No one knew. I didn't tell anyone. Because the last thing I wanted was to be the kid who said, "This rich guy's gonna change my life," and then have nothing to show for it. I'd seen that happen before. It's a cruel kind of silence when hope feels like it's tiptoeing around you, trying not to make a promise. The call came that Friday evening. Not a text. Not an email. A real call like old times, when people meant what they said and said it with their voice. I answered halfway through the second ring. "Hi, Elijah. It's Matthew Evans." I could hear background noise, plates clinking, distant laughter. Wherever he was, it wasn't near anyone like me. "I meant what I said," he continued. "I've spoken to someone at the foundation. We'd like to set up a few things for you. Mentorship, school support, possibly a summer internship. Nothing overwhelming. Just the next step." He paused. "But only if that's something you want. No pitch. No pressure. Just the offer, laid gently between us like a folded napkin." I said yes. Not because I needed saving, and not because I believed he could fix everything, but because someone had finally offered opportunity without suspicion, support without strings. And I wasn't going to pretend that didn't mean something. After we hung up, I just sat there for a while, phone still warm in my hand. I didn't tell my mom right away. For a few minutes, I just let the silence fill the room, and in it, something unfamiliar settled inside me. Not doubt, not even hope, but the smallest, strangest feeling of being seen, and not for what I lacked, but for what I already was. It didn't take long before the question started, just not from who you'd expect. My guidance counselor called me in, said she'd heard something exciting and wanted to know more. I told her what I could without sounding like I was making it up. She smiled, tight-lipped, and said, "That's unusual." Unusual. Like a millionaire showing up in my neighborhood couldn't be about respect. Like maybe I'd stumbled into something by accident, or worse, manipulated it. A few kids at school whispered about it, too. One of them, Jordan, nudged me in the hallway and said, "Man, you must have saved a whole family from a burning building or something." I laughed, but not really, because I knew what he meant. He couldn't imagine a rich white man doing anything for a black kid from our side of town unless it involved some Hollywood-level heroism. Just helping with a flat tire? That didn't fit the story they wanted to believe. No one asked about my grades, or how long I'd been helping my mom take care of my sister, or how many hours I'd spent fixing things around the neighborhood just because someone needed it. All they saw was the twist at the end of the script. They never asked about the part where I'd already been showing up. A week later, he came back again. Not with cameras. Not with news crews. Just him, in jeans this time, and a notebook tucked under his arm like he was coming to learn, not lecture. We sat on the porch. The wood still creaked, but now it felt like part of the story instead of something broken. He asked questions this time, real ones. About my school. What I liked, what I didn't, what I wanted to be. I told him maybe an engineer. Or maybe I'd work with my hands like my granddad. Build things that lasted longer than the people who made them. He nodded like he understood, then asked about the fence I was patching when he first pulled up. I told him how it kept falling over no matter how many times I tried to fix it. He laughed and said, "That sounds familiar." For the first time, I didn't feel like a project. I felt like a person, someone he wanted to understand, not just applaud. And that's when I realized something else. This wasn't about guilt. It was about repair. Not just the fence or the car, but something older, deeper, something that had been broken long before either of us showed up on that road. That Saturday, he showed up with lumber in the back of his car. Said it was leftover from a renovation he never finished. Told me we might as well put it to use. So we did. We spent most of the day in the yard, me measuring, him holding planks, both of us sweating through shirts that stopped matching after the first hour. He wasn't great with a hammer. His nails kept going and crooked. But he didn't quit. Neighbors walked by and stared. Not because they knew him, because they didn't. He didn't belong here. But he was here anyway. And he wasn't directing. He was helping. When we finished the fence, we sat on the porch again. My mom brought out lemonade in old jars, and the three of us sat there like we'd been doing it forever. "I've built a lot of things in my life," he said, watching the sunlight catch the new wood. "None of them ever made me feel like this." I didn't say anything. I just looked at the fence. It wasn't perfect. Some of the lines were crooked. One board stuck out more than the rest. But it stood. And for the first time in a long time, so did I. Things didn't change overnight. That's not how it works. But little things did. He came by now and then, sometimes with books, sometimes just to talk. Once, he brought blueprints and showed me how houses were designed from the ground up. Not a lecture, just curiosity meeting curiosity. I started spending weekends shadowing folks he knew, carpenters, surveyors, engineers. People who didn't flinch when I walked in, because he made sure they understood I wasn't there for a favor. I was there because I had something to offer. At school, my teachers began to notice. Not because I was any smarter, I'd always been smart, but because now they saw someone else believed at first. That's the thing about belief. When someone sees you as more than what the world expects, it cracks the mold just enough for light to get in. But it also made me look harder at all the times I'd been overlooked, underestimated, waved off. And not just me, my classmates, my cousins, my neighbors. It wasn't an accident. It was a system. One that taught people like him that help should come with a receipt, and people like me that help should be taken quietly, gratefully, and never expected again. We both lived inside it. Now we were trying, just a little, to live outside it. A few months later, I walked past the same spot where we first met. The roadside was quieter. The grass had grown in where his car had once leaned at an awkward tilt. The patch of gravel still showed the faint mark of a tire iron, like a scar on the ground. And there it was, a half buried in the dirt. A rusted nail. I bent down, picked it up, and turned it over in my hand. It might have been the one that popped his tire. Or not. But it didn't matter. That nail changed everything. Not because of what it broke, but because of what it started. One flat tire. One decision to help. One refusal to take money. And now here I was, shoulders straighter, eyes clearer, carrying more than I had before. He thought he was the one who got lucky that day. But the truth is, so did I. Not because of what he gave me, but because I finally saw what I already had. And how much of the world was built to pretend I didn't.